Imagine hanging a swing off of that beam and swinging out over the staircase.
Yeah.
I mean,
it'd be pretty awesome.
this is a fun bedroom. Who doesn't like a swing in the bedroom? This is going to be a lot of fun. Hey guys, Gaius here at the Shelter Institute. This is day 7 of our Woolwich build, and we have wrapped up our project. So what we're going to do today is take you on a tour through the construction project that we just finished. It's a timber frame garage and a timber frame home. I'm standing here with Ethan Corrand, our designer. So he meets with customers, he helps get their ideas out of their head onto paper, onto the computer screen, and ultimately onto the job site. So Ethan creates cut sheets, those head out to the shop, and Gabe, our shop foreman, takes those cut sheets and makes magic with timber to create the actual timber frame. So he's responsible for laying out and checking all of the joinery and making sure that every piece is accounted for and on the truck when we arrive at the job site. So let's head into the house and studio and take a walk around. Do you notice how I put on my TV voice?
It's much lower.
So let's walk into the house. So one of the biggest differences as far as the timber frame is concerned between the garage and the house is that we used native pine timbers in the garage and we used native hemlock timbers in the house. And it is a fairly different look. Hemlock has a very noticeable color difference between early wood and the late wood, and that gives you this nice color striation on the side of the timber. Pine is a slightly blander wood. It is much more pleasant to work. So from Gabe's point of view, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you probably prefer cutting a pine frame to a hemlock frame.
Yes. Pine doesn't care as much if you cut it dry or wet. It will still cut pretty well under a sharp edge. But with hemlock, there's just a huge difference as it dries. So try to kind of cut it quickly while it's still green. With 6 people in the shop cutting, a frame like this would take us probably a month to cut, give or take. The other big difference that I personally noticed, because we also did a lot of the swinging up of the joists and stuff, is that it's much heavier, so it's more work afterwards when we went and put the garage together. It just felt
we were all commenting
easy
on how light things were.
Yeah. First things that were cut sat for much longer than a lot of the things that we usually raise. Hemlock changes more aggressively as it dries, and anytime something that we cut dries, there's potential for things to change shape a little bit, and then it's just harder to put the joinery together. Yeah, I would say it went extremely smoothly for all of those things working against us. We also, at the beginning of this project, had a lot of fresh faces in the shop. New people who'd come to help us cut. Everyone had either taken our timber frame course in person or had taken it online. So the training process for me was much simpler. Everyone basically knew what was going on, and some of them were lucky enough to cut their teeth on hemlock projects. So since then, they've been cutting some pine, and I think they're really loving that as well.
You may notice that the floor is looking a little bit rough. It is a concrete slab and it has just a bull float finish on it. And the reason for that is that the customer is going to be building up a wood framed floor on top of the slab. So the first thing to go down will be a 2-inch thick piece of extruded polystyrene foam board. Then on top of that, 2x4 sleeper. On top of that will go a 3/4-inch Advantech subflooring, and then whatever their chosen finished floor will go on top of that. The advantage to that is it's going to raise the floor up enough of an elevation to cover this 3x14 sill plate. So around the perimeter, when this floor system is on, you won't see this sill plate protruding into the living space like you see now. So that's one nice benefit to that built-up floor system, is that we're going to cover that sill plate up all the way around, so you just have a nice clean edge from your floor right to your wall. So it's a little different than a typical first floor. Usually it would either be a wood frame platform on top of a foundation or just a finished slab similar to what is in the garage there that can be used as your finished floor as well. So originally the house was supposed to be a straw bale wall enclosure with a SIP roof, and we ended up swapping out the straw bale wall for a structurally insulated panel wall. So I was involved in that change, making little adjustments as needed to the timber frame to accommodate the SIPs.
So one of the interesting things about the connection between the house and the studio is this space in between the 2 timber frames. And originally, when Ethan and I were looking at the plans, that space made sense because it was a straw bale width. And The timber frames wanted to be separated so that the straw bale enclosure could live between the two timber frames. And then, of course, once it changed to SIPs, all of that necessity went away.
There's some good reasons to keep it. But typically with a frame like that, where we have two frames coming together like this, we would butt them up just tight to each other. So you'd have, this face of this post would be even with the back face of this post here, but leaving this space allowed a nice chase to get utilities up to the second floor. So if we didn't have this space here, the utilities would have to either go on one side or the other of these two timber beams. So we have this nice 16-inch corridor here where we can run water pipes, waste pipes up to the second floor. We can also run ducting for the heat recovery ventilator that the customer is going to be putting in to keep the indoor humidity in check. This area also in the floor plans is largely a sort of closet space on that side there, and then the back side of a studio area here. So it seemed to make sense to keep this space intact and utilize it for utilities, and then also just give the floor plan just a little bit more space, fit everything in there where it was meant to be.
We've seen some terrifying plumbing work going through our timbers, so this is nice to see. No beams in the way overhead. Those plumbers just go right through.
Right through.
Right through. It's right through.
Plumbers.
Can't live with them, can't live without them.
With this space between the two timber frames, we have to obviously enclose it on the exterior, on the walls and the roof. So in order to do that, we actually extended the SIP wall panels beyond the edge of this timber frame here. And you can see where they sort of come out to a corner and butt into the wall panels that are attached to the studio wall. We did a similar method on the roof as well. We have one of the sections of roof panel extend beyond the timber frame of the main building to the same plane as the studio. And then on top of that, there is another wall panel that extends up to the underside of the roof of the studio.
I mentioned previously that all of the timbers that we got were very nice, and that was a good start. That doesn't mean that they were all perfect. What you see is the best of what we got, but there's always some percentage that has something a little different, like this. So this is something that we would want to hide. Normally you wouldn't see this at all. The way we selected all the timbers for these different structures, the ones that are facing into this chase area that are all going to be covered, are going to be examples of less good versions of whatever timber it is. So this post, we were able to hide this, in the end. You'll see little things like that on the outsides of buildings from time to time, because this is a perfectly good post in order to make them all match aesthetically and not have any strange issues, funky knots. Sometimes you end up with wane or even just damage, chainsaw marks, forklift marks. It's something that we would put to the exterior. So that will be covered and hidden, and then they will all just blend and look the same. So this is the kitchen?
This is the kitchen.
This is the sink?
That's the sink.
So your coffee maker is going to be right here?
Right. Stove comes out. So there's a peninsula here. Peninsula here, stove, sink, and then there's a little island here, about a 2-foot by 4-foot island, and then the fridge is going to be right here, in this area here. And then the stairs go up, obviously up that opening there.
This beam was not structurally competent, so we added a block that's actually holding the beam up.
I don't remember that detail.
Talk a lot about that for the YouTube video, but
well, that's spruce, and it's got
I think at least 2 nails
screws in it.
Oh, there's screws, yeah. So
and that tape's not doing nothing.
we're fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not nothing. So here we are out on the porch, and when we show up to do our job, we're usually the first people to arrive after the foundation and site work people are done. So there's no wood, no carpentry has taken place, and so everything we're doing is working off of the concrete and up. We put these pressure-treated blocks underneath the piers. Ethan measured each of the pier elevations, the laser level, to make sure that we had a level surface for all of our timbers to spring off of. There's actually a piece of threaded rod that is epoxied into this post, through the composite post base, through the PT, and into that pier to hold the post down. At some point, the carpenters are going to build a wooden platform here that will just sort of cozy up to the underside of this composite base. So when you walk out of the house, you'll be standing on a nice porch, enjoying a cup of coffee or some whiskey, depending on
Time
what time of day it is. Exactly.
We set the elevation of these bases here so that we'd have an approximately a 6-inch step down from the top of the finished floor on the first floor down to the top of the finished decking on this deck. So a little bit of elevation drop there so that you don't have problems with moisture, getting into the sill of your door. We do also use structural screws that are driven from the inside surface of the SIP into the back of this post. So there's a structural screw that is attaching this post to the sidewall at these 3 post locations here, and we have those screws sort of evenly spaced up the height of the timber here to attach it back to the main house.
It is bolted back from the inside, but it exists entirely outside of the insulation envelope, so we're not dealing with moisture and condensation and heat and cold issues between a timber that's going inside and outside. It still ties back nicely to the SIPs, which are tied to the other timbers, but it's completely separate.
Just to make things a little bit easier for the electrician, as we're assembling the wall panels, we'll always mark the elevation of the wire chase. That just lets everyone know that there's something going on there, not a good place to put fasteners, and when the electrician needs to locate it on the outside of the building, it's very obvious, just a straight line between all of these hash marks.
The customer opted to also install 2x6 spruce tongue groove decking on the top of these rafters, and that will be your finished ceiling, and then the roofing material can be attached right to the top of that decking. You might notice 2x6 tongue groove decking extends out quite far beyond the side of the rafter here. The reason for that is that the customer is going to build a separate overhang on the main building, and in order to match that overhang, we thought the best approach would be for the customer to build the overhang out, and then once that's in place, then they can measure and cut these boards off to match that overhang exactly, just so that it's all continuous on this gable end. So that's why we left these boards a little bit long here. Typically, we would extend the structurally insulated panel roof beyond the sidewall to create whatever overhang is needed. We can generally go up to 2 feet of overhang but without having to add any additional structural elements to the SIP panels. In this case, the customer wanted a little bit of a thinner overhang, and also at the bottom in some areas there's going to be a little bit of a curved sweep at the bottom on the eaves. So instead of extending the SIP out like we typically would, we left them cut back flush on the gable ends, and then at the eave ends we left the SIP panel square cut, but just at the bottom corner it's even with the outside of the SIP wall. Then the customer will come back and install what they would like for an overhang there.
I say we go upstairs. Check out those cheeks.
Some sweet cheeks up there. What do we want to say about the cheeks? Sorry.
They are sweet.
This dormer has a small cheek wall on the side here. In this location, we actually pre-hung the drywall on the side of the dormer before we put the wall panel in. We're able to get the wall panel pre-cut as a nice little triangle piece that affixes itself right to the top of the main roof panels, which are running on this rafter here. Pieces of drywall go on first, then the SIP panel is lowered in place and attached, and then we screw the drywall right back to the SIP panel. On the roof, it's a little bit different. We have no drywall screws on these roof panels, and the reason for that is that the drywall is pre-glued to the panel at the factory. So it's laminated at the factory, and there's no need for additional fasteners there. So it makes for a very nice, smooth surface to finish off versus the walls where we have to put these drywall screws.
Not to mention it would be nearly impossible to hang drywall on the roof.
That's a good point. Yeah.
We did that at Shelter.
Did you?
5/8.
Oh boy.
Drywall.
Yeah.
It was an absolute nightmare. Yeah. Vowed to never do that again.
Drywall, anywhere possible, we always try to layer it on the outside of the frame instead of trying to cut the drywall. Like you can see in this situation, we had to cut the drywall even with the top of the rafter, and it's always difficult to get that cut just right. So up on the top there, it's sort of lapped behind the rafter. And that's the best way we found to install the drywall, because it gives you a nice crisp edge there that does not need to be taped or mudded like a typical corner would.
On the floor here is more tongue and groove spruce. We installed a lot of this on this job. This is actually where we started doing it, was right on this floor here. These posts land directly over posts below, but the posts don't run the whole height because we want them interrupted by our beams. So these are just sitting inside of mortises on top of the carrying beams. Because this post is 8 by 8, so we've got 8 inches here, it's landing on a timber that's also 8 inches. So we have a little bit of a detail that we cut into the side here, just a little dado, just so that when we're installing this flooring, really it's a ceiling, we're able to cut our notches in the flooring so that the flooring actually extends in past this plane a little bit. Rather than having to cut it super tight, it gives us a little bit of wiggle room, and also if there's any contraction and drying, it won't create open gaps everywhere. You know, at the bottoms of every post, it would just open up.
That was good action on the side of the timber.
I can feel that this is 8 by 8.
Human calipers.
Yep, that's 8. One of the interesting things we did on this building is a split ridge or a double ridge. On a building this wide, we would typically just have one ridge beam in the middle of the building that supports the rafters at the peak. We went with a split ridge because of this dormer. It gave us a place to actually break the roof to create this dustpan dormer. So on the front side of the house where you drive up, we just have a straight roof plane that runs down to a 2-foot knee wall. On the back side, obviously, we raised the roof and we were able to break it right at that ridge beam. And obviously that just creates this nice space, the ability to put windows and a view out the back of the building.
I mean, this also is just a good visual, this versus that, for people to just kind of understand what a dormer does. Because you see them from the outside and it just looks like a architectural decision for texture or something, but obviously you could do skylights over there, but it's much easier to do windows. I think it's better to do windows. And then there's the headroom. I mean, there's a ton of headspace over here. Natural light, huge amount of space. You know, if we were to just do the same thing over there that we did here, like we did in the studio, it's just much less usable living space.
One of the things I love about this double ridge beam are these timbers inside that are exposed on all sides. It gives this a really unique barn feel inside your home. I love that kind of timber frame. If we could build barns for people all the time, that'd be my favorite type of build. You can have a lot more fun building a barn. When we built our barn, much more fun. Building our house, stressful.
But this house build rivaled any barn build.
Yeah, if there ever was a house build that rivaled the barn build, it was this one.
Well, yeah, the fun thing about the barn for us is you build the timber frame and we see it like this. And with a barn, it's more likely to kind of stay that way.
Yeah, this is
almost be painful to stay and
I know.
block things off. And
Yeah, the whole area is going to get all diced up with various walls and, you know, stairs coming up, walkways. It is nice to just appreciate it just all open like this before it gets closed in.
Imagine hanging a swing off of that beam and swinging out over the
Oh yeah,
staircase. I mean,
it'd be pretty awesome.
this is a fun bedroom. Who doesn't like a swing in a bedroom?
Yeah.
This is going to be a lot of fun.
Well, I think this is the master bedroom over here, this area. Master bedroom here, and then master bath over sort of in that corner with a closet. And then there's a second bedroom, I think, where Gabe and Clayton are on that side over there.
Well, you'll have the zip line obviously running out
That's true. Yep.
into the woods.
That's going to be a nice long run too.
Just a couple more trees there. I mean, that'd be a nice little shot all the way down there.
Yep.
Wow, it's kind of a long little
And you can
log.
see really far.
One of the things that we have briefly talked about in the past that I think is really cool when we're building a timber frame is when we create a window opening, sort of being the first group of people to appreciate the view out of that window opening.
Yep. Always I always think of that, which windows have the best view out of them and where the best spot to drink coffee is. This is a good one. When you're drinking your coffee in the morning, do you stare out your windows?
Sometimes.
I stare out my windows so much.
It is nice to show the difference between the house, the SIP.
I mean, there's no ridge beam,
Yeah.
there's no dormer, it's different.
Yeah, it is. And also just the interior finish. You know, if you were to sort of compare and contrast this interior finish to the barn, obviously you've got the gypsum interior here, whereas in the barn we just have that 2x6 tongue and groove plank. It's a dramatically different look. The build that you captured out on Martha's Vineyard obviously was the pre-finished T&G. So.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
With this one, we just went with the gypsum everywhere on the ceiling. With these 2-foot knee walls, there is great opportunity to bang your head. This 45-degree chamfer that we run on the side of the rafters really softens that blow from a hard corner to a nice flat surface. So I've hit my head many times on these rafters, and I am often thankful for that. Oh, God, hit my head on the corner. So the project that we completed last is this 24 by 24 timber frame garage, and it is a carbon copy of our 24 by 24 kit. It's a very simple building, but it lends itself very nicely to a 2-bay garage. You have a 12 by 24 foot bay on each side. This particular design just has an opening in the back that's 9 feet by 12 feet that would allow a staircase to be built, giving access to the second floor. Obviously, we didn't install SIPs on this building. We just put 2x6 plank on the roof because it's an uninsulated structure.
The one modification we made versus the class frame is that we added these rafter tails on the ends of the rafters to extend the overhang out. And the 2x6 tongue groove decking was nailed right to the top of the rafters, so it extends out on the eaves, and then it also cantilevers out on the gable ends to create the overhang out there as well.
It's an 18-inch projection.
It is, yeah. 18-inch horizontal projection on the eaves and then also on the gable. It helps shed any weather away from the building, so it allows it to fall on the ground further away from the building so that there's less splashback on the siding, which is very nice. To keep that splashback down to a minimum, because over time you can get green algae forming there, so it can lead to rot, moisture issues down the road. So it's also very nice for the snow slide off, because especially with a building like this with a very steep pitch and a metal roof, the snow slides off very violently with a lot of force. So the further you can get that snow away from the building, the better, so it doesn't mound up beside your building and cause issues that way as well.
The general contractor for the project is going to install horizontal purlins between all of the posts and then just run with a vertical board siding. So that siding will act as the siding and sheathing combined.
We're leaving it as is, aside from coming back to tie the posts down for some period of time. So we've got roof and everything that's holding things square, but really nothing on the side walls aside from these small wind braces. But there's really no sense in removing them when they're still doing their job until someone comes back in and adds purlins and siding and whatever else.
Staircase is going to come up like this to a landing in the corner, and then the final climb will be paralleling the rise of the roof to arrive up on the second floor. So it's just going to be an L-shaped stair that lives in this area. Well, thanks for following along on the tour of this project. I think we're all feeling that amazing sense of completion. A job well done, obviously, but a job carefully planned and thoughtfully executed.
So I was laughing from earlier.
Check out those cheeks.
Some sweet cheeks up there.
Thanks everyone for following along on this journey. So sincere, right?
Yeah, right. Is it subscribe or like? I don't know.
Both.
Like and subscribe?
You want them to like this video.
All right.
And subscribe, because
Like
then
and
they'll
subscribe.
see the next video.
To see our future.
Well, I watch a lot of YouTube.
Okay. We'll see you on the next one.
That's a wrap. Whew. Thanks for watching. We've had a great time building this frame. We hope you've enjoyed watching our process. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on our future content. And if you think you might like to build your own timber frame, check out the link below for our online course selection.
That's great.
Was that all right?
That was a wrap.
All right.
Can you do a clap? You know.